Hey, it's your boy Easy, and on today's episode of Easy Opens, we're going to be taking a look at the Jazwares Typhlosion Pokemon Select action figure. So this is a Target exclusive here in the United States, and apparently now it's a part of their Trainer Team series, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a new tagline to the line, and you can see it on the sticker of the box, which I haven't seen on any of the other boxes from the previous 3 series. So that makes me think that maybe they're trying to do something else with the line, like maybe to curate the line to complete some popular trainers teams from like the manga or the anime or the video games or whatever. And I think that's a really cool idea. And what better way than just to fill it with a bunch of the final evolutions of some of the starter Pokemon. And so that's what we have here with Typhlosion. Now, speaking of the box, not the biggest fan of this box, but here on the channel we don't really care about boxes, so let's lose the box and see what we think about Typhlosion. So here is Typhlosion, a fire-type Pokemon who first appeared in Pokemon Gold and Silver as the final evolution of Cyndaquil back in 1999-2000. It's apparently based on a mustelid? I don't know, let me know in the comments below how to actually pronounce this, but nevertheless, it's the family of animals that consist of badgers, weasels, otters, wolverines, etc. And it looks pretty darn accurate to the source material from the video games and everything else that's come out before this figure, that it looks pretty accurate. It always looked to me like someone woke up their pet otter by setting their collar on fire. Like that's what this Typhlosion always looked like to me. So let's go ahead and talk about the paint and the sculpt on this figure. Now, the colors on this figure, they contrast with one another and work really well on this character, and that's translated very well from the video games to this actual figure. You have the dark blue on the back, the kind of custardy looking yellow on the front, and that's pretty much it. There's a few other things, like he has the eyes, which they look good some angles, they look weird some angles to me. That your mileage may vary on that, but they're well done. And then he's got 4 white teeth, a pink tongue, and then if you flip him upside down, you get a little red mouth. And then lastly, you can also remove the fire effect from his neck, and you can see on the back what I think is the ventilation. I don't want to call it a shaft because that's weird, but I guess just the vents that where the fires comes from on the character. It's just 5 oblong circles that are painted kind of a darker red, and that's really all the paint you're going to get on this figure. There's not much else to it. Now, moving on to the sculpt, again, this character is a pretty sleek design. There's not a lot of nuance to this character. So so what's here is it looks just like the character, except the articulation in the neck, at least for me, and especially at first, I've gotten a little used to it now, but at first it was throwing me off. Like something just looked a little strange, especially from the front. But as I've had it a few days, it's grown on me a little bit more. But it's just a little weird, and I'm not entirely sure if I would have just rather have had a solid neck piece instead of all these separate pieces to make the neck articulate. The mouth is really cool. It articulates, it opens up, and that's awesome. However, I've had trouble keeping the mouth opened, and really that's not the biggest issue. The biggest problem I have with it is that I can't get it wide enough to give it that, I'm on fire, like, like just angry yell that it always seems to have whenever you see it. And that's kind of what I would want out of a Typhlosion. What we've got, again, just looks like like he's yawning, or like he's just kind of like, hey guys, hey, oh, what's cooking, like that's pretty much the look he's got, just some chill look. And I feel like if it could just get open a little bit more, it would have a lot more aggression to it, and I would have liked that. And then moving on to the hands. The hands are a little strange. Like the feet look fine. The feet are fine for what they are. The hands look a little too much like little human hands, I guess. I don't know. There's something about the thumb maybe, or I don't know. There's something very strange to me about them, and I could be wrong. Like, it might not bother anybody else, but this is just me. There's just something there that's giving me a weird vibe. I just can't put my finger on it. This figure comes with, well, I guess you could say the neck fire thing is an accessory because you can take it off, I guess. So there's that. But the only other thing it comes with is a clear plastic base with the articulated flight stand, which, I mean, you don't really need this for Typhlosion. It's cool that they included it, but he can pretty much stand on his own. But having said that, I was curious to see if he could get on all fours and kind of like have like that kind of pose, and it doesn't really work. His head goes too far down that it hits the ground, so you can probably fudge it and make it work with some finagling, but for the most part, you really can't do it, and so that's a little unfortunate. But nevertheless, again, comes with a flight stand if you need it and if you want to teach him a TM so he can learn fly somehow in your canon. I don't know, maybe that could work. According to Bulbapedia, an average Typhlosion weighs around 175 pounds and stands at about 5 foot 7 inches. This figure, though, he doesn't weigh quite 175 pounds, but he does have some heft to him. He does have some he's kind of chonky a little bit, and I'm a big fan of that with action figures, so that's really cool, but not quite 175 pounds. But he does stand at almost 6 inches tall, which is pretty close to, 1-for-1 with an average Typhlosion. However, a lot of this is a little irrelevant now because of, I think it was starting in either Pokemon Go or Pokemon Legends Arceus, they started to incorporate more size variations with the Pokemon. So they could be either super small or super big, and it could work. And so that's kind of my excuse for a lot of like the size discrepancies with some of these Pokemon in my head canon. However, I don't think that you need to fudge anything with Typhlosion because he stands a little bit over 5.5 inches. So there you go. All right, well, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about some articulation. All right, let's take a look at the articulation you're going to get out of Typhlosion. Well, first of all, you can take off the little flame collar, if you will. And yeah, let's start with the head. So the mouth articulates just a little bit. And the head turns quite a distance, but then once the rest of the neck goes with it, you can kind of get him to look behind himself to see what's behind him. And then, yeah, the neck kind of, they all have like little, they don't go full 360, but they can kind of get there to where you can see behind him. And yeah, it has a little bit of give to where he can look up just a little bit, but he can look down a little bit better, but that's pretty much his default stance. Then the waist, I guess, is 360, full 360 there, and still some back and forth that you can, rock with him. Then the arms have a little joint in there, not quite full 360, but a little bit of a range of motion with some front to back, side to side movements. The elbow gets full 360 with a hinge, and then the wrist has a hinge with the little weird hands. Moving to the legs. The legs can go forward just a little bit, and then back and down and kind of like in and out a little bit, just a little bit of wiggle room. And then the feet have full 360 and a little toe joint, a little toe hinge right there. So yeah, so that's the articulation that you're going to get out of Typhlosion. So now let's take a look and see how he compares to some other figures you might have in your collection. Here they are next to the Chikorita, Totodile, and Cyndaquil from Tomy. Here they are next to the Gardevoir model kit from Bandai and Greninja from Jazwares Pokemon Select series. Here they are next to Ash and Pikachu from SH Figuarts and Marnie from Figma. Here they are next to the epic battle figure Dragonite from Jazwares and Arcanine from Wicked Cool Toys. Here they are next to the NECA Leonardo figure and the Lemmy Koopa figure from World of Nintendo. Here they are next to Peely from Jazwares and Killmonger from Marvel Legends. So, final thoughts on Typhlosion. This figure has grown on me a lot. I originally saw it and I liked the character enough that I said I wanted to get it, and it's a starter, so that's cool. Like, the final evolution for a starter, so those are always neat. And I don't know. I've skipped some other characters in this line because I thought they were too big, namely Lucario, even though the size variations that are now canon in Pokemon kind of could, make that work. But it still just was too big for me. Typhlosion was pretty much the right size. There was nothing about the size of it, but there was something about his face, something about the way that the face looked, or the mouth, like in conjunction with like the narrowness of the eyes with the nose and everything. Something in the face just was throwing me off, but nevertheless, I still got it. And the more time that I've spent with this figure and the different angles that I see it in, I've grown to appreciate and like this figure a lot more than I initially did. Another thing that made me appreciate it is obviously seeing it with other Pokemon characters that are not only in the line of Pokemon Select, but also just their Jazwares basic Pokemon line of action figures, as well as some other Pokemon related toys. Seeing it work with those and just be in that environment was really cool, and kind of like made me appreciate it a lot more than I initially did. Besides the hands weirding me out just a little bit, the only problem that I have with it really is the mouth. I wish that the mouth would stay open a little bit easier and that I could get it a little bit wider. I feel like it gets almost the look that I'm wanting, but it which is like this kind of like fierce, like my neck's on fire kind of thing. But like what we get is kind of a yawn, like, oh, my neck's on fire again. Like he's used to this. This is nothing new. And so I kind of wish that they would have made it to where the jaw would like hinge a little bit better and like stay put, to where you could have that option if you wanted it to where it is now, or if you wanted to go a little bit further with it. And that would have been cool. I was really impressed with the amount of articulation that was in the arms and some of the different poses you could get with him. Not necessarily anything super dynamic, but just some of the kind of, I guess, like emotions and just things you can convey with the subtle movements that you can do with this figure and make him look like he's either like ready to fight or that he's ready to dance. I don't know, but it gives you so many options and kind of like brings this character to life, at least for me. And that was really cool and a lot of fun. And again, the more I look at it, the more time I spend with this figure, I really start to like it a lot more than I ever initially did. And it's kind of funny. It's like each time I pick it up, I just find a new appreciation for it. And that's really rad. Another nitpick is that the thing that it made me wish that Pokemon would start doing, or I should say Jazwares would start doing, is put out some effects parts with some of these figures, especially the select ones, and especially the ones that don't necessarily need the flight stand. The flight stand is cool, that's awesome, and that's always a welcome addition to any action figure collection because you can use them in a lot of variety of ways. However, it would have been really rad if they would have included some flame effects to kind of like emulate some of the moves, like some of the type moves for the different Pokemon. And that's like the one thing that I think would put this line of action figures like just that much more over the top and make it a really substantial Pokemon line to collect. But what we have here is a pretty spot on representation of what we see on the screen, but in plastic form. And I think that Jazwares did a great job with this. And like I keep saying, the more time I spend with it, the more I appreciate it. And I think you will too. So that all being said, I think Jazwares did a great job with Typhlosion. And if you're in the market for a chonky fire type Pokemon to add to your collection, I don't think you can go wrong with picking up Typhlosion. All right, well, that's going to do it for me today. Thanks so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, hit that like button. And if you want to see more of me, hit that subscribe button. And if for some reason you want to hear more from me, especially talk about the Ninja Turtles, well, check out my podcast, Turtle Soup Show, where me and my friend Ryan talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like at least twice a month. And we do that on the YouTubes, and we also have it on wherever you listen to podcasts. So, yeah, until then, else time.